my name is Daniel Chan, and this is my rhetorical analysis of Jessica Mitford's Behind the Formaldehyde Curtain. First, some background information. Jessica Mitford wrote the Behind the Formaldehyde Curtain to explore the relatively unknown world of embalming. Mitford herself was a foreigner, and when she came to the States, she was appalled by the exploitive methods encouraged by the funeral industry. Her expose berates the industry for their poor treatment of the corpses and their gross unprofessionalism, but most importantly, Mitford's essays go into immense detail to berate the industry and also ridicule the notion of choosing to embalm an individual. However, my essay itself is not an exploration of the seedy underbelly of the embalming industry. My essay is about how Mitford uses multiple rhetorical devices to convince the audience that the funeral industry is morally corrupt. This essay looks at how Mitford's piece works functionally. It's not a debate about whether Mitford is right or wrong, but how successful she is at using these strategies to prove her point. Next, I want to show you is my thesis. In the Behind the Formaldehyde Curtain, Mitford dexterously utilizes the rhetorical strategies of logos, pathos, and ethos to ridicule the industry for manipulating the families of the bereaved and the defilement of the bodies of the deceased. In this presentation, I will look at three main rhetorical strategies practiced in our essay, these being pathos, logos, and ethos. Basically appeals to emotion, logic, and credibility of the person making the argument. First, we're going to look at pathos. And for this, I have a quote. Every operator has a favorite injection and drainage point of fact, which became a handicap only if he fails to refuse or forsake his favorites when the conditions demanded. So what we're looking at is when Mitford tells the audience that the operator has a favorite injection point, she's really saying that the operator is kind of a masochist, someone that derives pleasure from dissecting a person, which is kind of strange. It's almost as if the practitioner is discussing his favorite method of torture. When we read this, the practitioner is kind of depicted as someone devoid of humanity, someone who is abhorred or even ashamed of destroying who's not even ashamed of destroying a person's body. It's strange because usually most people would be disgusted by this process, but they seem to enjoy it like it's a game. It's kind of treating the body as if it's nothing. Next, I want to go on to ethos and how Mitford uses it in her essay. So the next, she questions their authority by saying, his equipments consist of scrapels, scissors, augers, forceps, clamps, needles, pumps, tubes, bowls, and basins. Is crudely imitative of the surgeons, as his technique acquired in a 9 or 12-month post-high school course in an embalming school. So when we look at this quote, it's interesting because she's sowing the seeds of mistrust. How can we as an audience trust an embalmer to handle a body if you only have a high school diploma? She's criticizing the embalmer's inflated ego because they see themselves as surgeons. But in reality, they're no more than laborers that, finally, on the next slide, we're going to be discussing logos and how Mitford uses it throughout her essay. So she says, yet no laws require embalming, no religious doctrine commands it, nor is it dictated by considerations of health, sanitation, or even personal daintiness. So what Mitford is basically saying is she's reasoning with the audience that if your church or your religious perspective or the government's perspective and the health community's perspective is saying that we don't encourage this, we don't support this, you don't have to do this, he's saying why would you have to embalm someone's body? She's making the logical point that you don't really have an excuse to embalm a body because no one's forcing you to do it. And it doesn't really help the matter either. Because even if the health community is saying that it's not going to improve the health or it's not going to cause infections, then why would you pay thousands or millions of dollars to a funeral house to dissect the body and make it this really unnatural thing? And what's also interesting is because she's using these three perspectives on a personal and religious and even a legal matter, we can't really... She's making it as if there's absolutely no excuse to embalm someone's body. And that's why by using logos, pathos, and ethos to drive her point, she's really effective in driving home the idea that embalming is wrong, and it also paints the morticians as really quite evil. However, also I'm going to end on a more positive note where we're talking about how I reflected on this essay and what did I really enjoy or what did I find interesting. What I really found interesting about this essay was that the essay helped me learn about how to write an effective and convincing essay, not whether I'm making a point or not. I want to have an effective point by using rhetorical strategies and appeals like ethos, logos, and pathos. I want to This essay really helped me to try to dissect and try to analyze how people are being convincing rather than whether they're right or wrong. I also really like this essay because I learned something new. I didn't really know that the funeral industry was this corrupt or this illogical and arbitrary. And I also really enjoyed it because this piece was enthralling and it made me a more informed person. And this essay, I wish I could do it again. It was perfect, and I hope we have more essays like this. And this concludes my presentation of Jessica Mitford's Behind the Formaldehyde Curtain.